One girl, one boy, some grief, some joy. Memories are made of this. Don't forget a small moonbeam falling lightly with a dream. Your lips and mine, two sips of wine. Memories are made of this. Then at the wedding bells, one house where lovers dwell, three little kids for the flavor. Stare carefully through the days, see how the flavor stays. These are the dreams you will savor. With blessings from above, serve generously with love. One man, one wife, one love through life. Memories are made of this. Memories are made of this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm your surprise host for Queen City Chronicles. Thank you for joining in. If you'd like to call in, please do. I'd love to have you because we're content light. The number is 640-3091. And Mr. Hopwood, who's normally on this show, is otherwise detained. If you want to, there's a board of mayor and alderman meeting on tonight, so lots going on. And then there's a number of educational matters going on. Also, there's a that people can go to. So I just want to. I'm going to start very quickly just by doing something that I didn't do at my. Earlier, I was doing my show called Education Matters, and usually I like to advertise my our good friend Dr. Bogan Vargas and his attempts to reach out to people in the city, and because I think it's such a wonderful thing, I think people should be aware of it. So the next one up actually is a couple of weeks away. Actually, it's 3 weeks away, so not that opportune, I guess. But on November 8th at Weston Elementary School at 7:30 in the morning, Dr. Vargas will be there, and on November 9th at 4:30 in the afternoon, he will be at Central High School. So. So if you have questions about, of course, sadly, that will be the couple of days after the election. So I didn't realize that until I brought it up, that it would be then, because it would be a little too late to ask stories about our schools, etc. Another item that has happened in our schools is that the principal of Beach Street School, Christine Brennan, was named as the Assistant Director of Education for the state, or Assistant Commissioner for the state of New Hampshire for Education. So that's a wonderful thing. We'll have a Manchester voice up there, and boy, do we need some Manchester voices up there. Because there's a dearth of them, and sadly, one of the problems with the city of Manchester's representation in Concord nowadays is that it is because some of the state reps, their constituencies cover some wards in Manchester and some outside towns, and so that sort of gerrymandering has happened to dilute the voice of Manchester in Concord. And so now we have the ridiculous scene of public representatives who represent, a couple of wards in Manchester and a town or two outside it, voting directly in opposition to things that are of interest to Manchester. And so in the end, Manchester is Manchester. I think we need to hold people's feet to the fire and push them to vote in the interests of Manchester constituents, and not just in the interests of what might be their hometown sometimes, or whatever else. So I'm looking here at a few things. We've had, I've mentioned it earlier, but I'd like to take a moment to talk about it here. And again, feel free to call in if you'd like to at 640-3091. That's if you're calling on Tuesday night. We had the first mayor's debate in Manchester, which was on a radio station yesterday morning, I think it was, Monday morning. And I have to tell you, first of all, I was disappointed, and I have been disappointed by the fact that Mayor Gatsis will not agree to meeting for debate with candidate Joyce Craig in a more open forum, and that he does not agree to coming in front of the voters and allowing the average voter on the streets of Manchester to ask him questions. So there is no open mic like we've had in previous elections. There is no opportunity to come in front of the people at a place like, say, Memorial High School or one of the middle schools, etc. Like the last time, I think there were 5 debates held, and they're open to the public, and people can come in. And there was no big problem the last time, other than if you consider asking people some straight-up questions that they perhaps don't want to answer. If you consider that a problem, then, which I don't, and I don't think most of you would either. So I just want to sort of call it like it is. There are 2 candidates for mayor, and one of those 2 candidates who's been a mayor for the last 4 terms, who's been a city alderman before that, a state rep before that, a man steeped in politics. It tells a lot when that person is not ready to stand in front of the voters. I think he probably knows the writings on the wall. When you've been a politician for as long as Mayor Gatsis has, and you end up getting 4,500 or something shy of 5,000 votes in a citywide election for in a primary, without any significant opposition other than Joyce Craig was in opposition, but then there were 2 other candidates, neither of whom garnered very much vote. So it's not as though that somebody to the far right took some of his votes or something. Mind you, to be far right, they'd have to be a long way away. But in any case, I'm just bothered by the fact that there is not an opportunity for you, the people of Manchester, to ask questions of Mayor Gatsis, to account for some of the actions and the inactions of the last 8 years, and that instead of that, we have this the next debate, for instance, is next Wednesday morning, which you'll be able to, I'm sure, see on Manchester Public Television, on probably Channel 22, I'm guessing. I also know that Peter White and Joel Elber will be carrying it on 95.3 FM on the radio that morning. But again, it's $45 a ticket. To go. It's on at the back room, and much as I like the back room, and I'm sure the breakfast will be nice, and I don't in any sense deny the Chamber of Commerce its right to do this, and etc. And they should do it, and they're an important constituency for anybody running for the executive office in Manchester. There's still a smell of elitism about it. You can't be a politician, in my view, who goes around saying, I'm going to hold the line, I'm not going to spend another dime. Your house is on fire, but I'm only going to give you half the water you need because we need to conserve water in case there's another problem later on. We're only sending one fire truck with one tanker load of water because, well, our policy is to conserve water. So Mayor Gatzis's response to numerous problems in the city of Manchester is we're going to give you a percentage of what you need because I'm going to hold the line here, and we're not going to give you all the resources that you clearly deserve. So coming to me with an argument based on logic and science and knowledge and facts is a waste of time, because you can put all those in front of somebody and explain why they need to take this action and why the city needs this action. But your response is going to be, I'm not going there because I'm going to hold the line. When I looked at that for a long time, I took that at its face, and I said, well, fair enough. The man claims that he's holding the line in terms of he said, I'm doing this for the taxpayers, I'm holding the line for the taxpayers. And then when I thought on it a little deeper, it turns out that we're holding the line for some taxpayers, not for all taxpayers, because taxpayers want safe streets. Taxpayers want firemen and firewomen and a fire department that's properly staffed and with proper allocations and being paid properly. People want a police department that's got its full complement. People want to be able to sleep in their houses at night time and park their cars in their driveways and not worry about them being broken into and about things going on in the streets that should not be going on. These are the fundamental requirements of a city. And people want a school system that if they have kids in it, they want to think that those kids are getting the best education and a great education that they deserve. And if they don't have kids in the school system, they want to be able to tell their friends and family and visitors and relations and people they know in other towns and from other places, they want to boast about the great schools they have in their city. I don't think anybody in this city, there isn't anybody who doesn't want to go back to a time when they all took some pride in knowing that Manchester was the 5th or 6th best city to live in the United States. And today, our answer after 4 terms of Mayor Gatzis's oversight, we've had a downgrading of our fiscal, of our bond rating, 2 times by Moody's, because they don't like the way in which we're managing our finances, and that's all because of the fact that we have very poorly funded our schools, for instance, and because we refuse to actually raise the amount of money necessary to supply the services that the city needs. Moody's takes a poor view of it. People coming here who would wish to move their families here and live here take a poor view of it, and everybody knows it. Or most people should know it. And if you don't know it, then you haven't really looked at the facts. Because if you ask any realtor in the city of Manchester or in the surrounding towns, and you ask them when a husband, wife, and 2 kids arrive and they're looking to buy a house, they start asking about schools and they ask about Manchester, and they get shooed off into other towns. And even here in Manchester, we have aldermen and school board members who are concerned about when we have developments in the city about what the developments will do to our school population. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a declining school population, primarily because Mayor Gatzis and others led by him, pushed the surrounding towns out. And through an arrogant response to the needs of the people from the surrounding towns, gave them a like it or lump it answer, refused to make the changes that we needed to make in the city, and so they left. And they left not just by small margins, but in the case of Candia, for instance, when the vote was taken there about whether to continue the 100-something-year-long relationship with the city of Manchester, the vote was 95% in favour of severing the relationship with Manchester. So, you can sit in a smouldering ruin and say to people, look at my beautiful house, and everybody knows you're nuts. You can keep on saying about the beautiful house, but everybody sees the smouldering ruin. And so I'm not saying that Manchester schools are a smouldering ruin. I'm saying that the mayor insisting that everything is fine and there's nothing to see here and that our schools are great and we've got great schools and we'll show them is patently false. He knows it. You know it. Every member of the board of school committee knows it, and every alderman knows it. But yet, it would require moral fortitude or fiscal fortitude, and moral courage, and political courage to stand up and do something about it, to make proposals that would actually advance our school system, see it modernized and updated and replenished. And we haven't had that kind of leadership in the city of Manchester. I don't know, frankly, if we're going to get that from Joyce Craig. I know that Joyce Craig will have a more benevolent view towards schools. She's less likely, in my mind, to sit there and barefaced lie to my face. And I've seen her managerial style, and it's more collaborative and collegial than having, the bully in the corner of the room shouting people down and insisting my way or the highway. So I'm hoping, ladies and gentlemen, that people are paying attention, that they will go out and vote on November 7th and move this great city of Manchester to the next level. There's a lot that can be done in this city. There's a lot that needs to be done, but we need to get the people who are holding the line for a small group of vested interests. We need to get them out of the way. And then, I think Mayor Gatzis should be thanked for all his years of service. Besides, ignoring the fact that he did a poor job when it came to some things, particularly when it came to education. And I was asked on a radio show on the Exchange one morning about 6 months ago to give him a grade. And I gave him a passing grade for some other things, but I gave him an F for education. And I think it was Dean Spiliotis. I'm not sure which one of the political professors it was who was chairing that show said, "Oh, that's a little harsh. That's a little harsh, Jim," or "Those are tough marks." He didn't say. He said that's a tough mark. And I said, "Well, it's a tough mark for a reason. When you've overseen the what I would call the destruction of the system, when every contributing town has voted with their feet and they've taken their kids and they've moved them elsewhere." And it is no end of galling to me, ladies and gentlemen, to watch buses, yellow buses, every morning driving the full length of Manchester, going right through the city, to drive kids from a town on one side of the city all the way through our beautiful city, past our schools, to go to schools in other towns because they can get a better education and pay less for it, or pay the same for it. And all those people, and many of them are up for election on our school board, who sat and faced me down time and time again about how they were so sure they were right, that the contributing towns were a net minus for the city, and the day that we put it up to them and tell them take it or leave it, they'll come back to us because they couldn't get a better bargain anywhere else. It was lies and nonsense then. It was lies and nonsense when the people walked out, and it's lies and nonsense now. They've none of them, not one of those people has ever had the decency to come back and say we were wrong, even though we know they were wrong, because either that or thousands of parents all around the area from every city, every town around, they're all mistaken, or the one or two people on, or the 4 or 5 people on our school board who wanted to hold the line for their elitist friends and weren't going to spend a dime, and we're doing better than everybody else despite what all the evidence is. They were wrong. And they're wrong now again, ladies and gentlemen. It's as plain as the nose on your face. When you look at, you can talk about STEM and STEAM all you want. I've used the analogy numerous times that the people, anybody in this city can send their kids to STEAM if they want to, and outside towns, the town of Hooksett, which has this, something that I'm not crazy about, this idea that they've signed up their kids for 8 different high schools, and but one of those is West High School. Do you know how many people choose to send their kids from Hooksett to West High School for the STEAM program? Last year, 0. Not one. So dance up and down all you like, shout all you like, oh, it needs to be better advertised. Oh, that's what the mayor says today. People don't know about it. This is its third or fourth year now, Mr. Mayor, and people don't want it. So when they're not buying what you're selling, when you're standing on Elm Street with your apron on outside your restaurant and all the other restaurants are full and yours is empty, don't be telling yourself that it's because people don't know the beautiful menu you have. Because you can take your French fries and one boiled egg and insist that it's that it's steak and onions all you want, but it's not. And they know it, they can smell it, they can see it, and they don't want it. So look in your restaurant. If the restaurant is empty, there's something wrong with what you're doing. Now, the problem with the chef, Mr. Mayor, standing outside with the apron on with the empty restaurant is when the chef doesn't know there's even a problem, there's no chance of changing the menu. There's no chance of changing anything else. There's nothing wrong with where the restaurant is. If the problem is with the guy doing the cooking, the guy managing the restaurant, the guy deciding the menu, and holding the line, deciding you're only going to buy eggs and potatoes because you're not going to spend money on steak, when people up and down the street actually want to buy steak, that's where your problem is. Go back to the debate, ladies and gentlemen, and just follow the money. If you want to spend $45 to go to the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, then great. If you can afford $45 for breakfast. I don't know, the people listen, just be honest. If you don't like what you're hearing, just still bear with me for a minute and ask yourself the question. When was the last time you spent $45 for yourself? Not your wife. Now, if your wife's coming, it's $90. Or maybe you'll have a drink. Maybe you'll have a Bloody Mary. That'll be another 10 and 10, 20. You'll be on 110 for a Bloody Mary each. But when was the last time? Just very simply, no rhetoric, no politics, just very simple stuff. When was the last time you, the person listening to my voice right now, spent $45 on breakfast on a Wednesday morning to go out? And that'll be your answer right there. There'll be some people watching this who will say yes. And great, I have nothing against you. I think that's wonderful. Good for you. But you're a very tiny minority. Now, you are the people that Mayor Gatsis wants to talk to, for sure, because you're the people that he's looked after. And he's been looking after you for a long time. So, if you own 500 apartments in Manchester, or if you're a property developer with some hundreds of apartments someplace else, or, a million square feet of commercial space, if that's who you are, then maybe, I think you're wrong, but maybe having your buddy Ted hold the line for you so you don't have to spend any money here is probably a good thing. You won't hear this unless you're visiting the city, if you're one of the many property owners who choose to buy properties in Manchester as investments and then don't want to invest in them, and they go back to their house in Rye or in Bedford or up in Sunapee, and they drive down to Manchester once every month or so to make sure everything's all right, or maybe they don't. Some of them don't show up at all. But they're very happy that they don't have to spend a dime more because they don't spend it on paint. They don't spend it on cleaning up the leaves. They don't spend it on cutting the grass. They don't spend it on the trash that's sticking out of all the barrels in the back alley behind their place. They don't spend it on making sure that the place is safe under an alarm system. They don't mind the fact that Manchester has to keep on sending police officers by their lousy apartment because of drug deals and drug addicts and whatever else, because they don't live there. They don't care. I had a buddy once say to me, there was a drug deals going on in a property that he owned. And it was a 3-family, and he ended up putting 4 men in the ground floor of the apartment, 20-something-year-olds. And I said to the guy, who lived a couple of towns away, this is 10 years ago, I said to the guy, like the police are there every couple of nights and there's all kinds of trouble. And this guy was like a 30-year-old guy married with a couple of young children, seemingly decent person. And his answer to me was, he was destroying a neighborhood, but his answer to me was, well, I couldn't get anybody else to move in. And, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to make. So what do you care? You're living in your beautiful house in suburbia. You don't have to care that the citizens of Manchester, the taxpayers, the renters, the property owners, the families are here trying to look after the trash that you've created. But you're fine, because you're going to put the big blue and yellow sign outside your apartment building when the 2 years comes up for re-election, and you'll have a big sign up there and it'll be, hold the line on taxes with Teddy Gatsis. And that's all you have to say. And lying about your opponent, that's your answer. There is no answer about we're going to make this city the greatest city that it can be. There is no answer about how we're going to invest in its future, how we're going to make sure our kids are successful so that the next generation is more successful than this one is. There is nobody coming out of the corner office in Manchester and going up to Concord and pounding their fists on the desk like they do in City Hall, and go up there and pound some fists up there and demand that the downshifting of costs stop, and that the proper funding flow to Manchester, and that the solely relying on the property owners of Manchester, the everyday property owners and taxpayers of Manchester to fund everything needs to come to an end. Because what Mayor Gatsis is doing in Manchester, his friends are doing in Concord, and his even better friends are doing down in Washington D.C. because they've got their hands around the throat of the Department of Education down there. So make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. All politics is local. It begins locally. And if you really don't like what's going on in your town, in your city, in your community, in your state, and in your country, you start with your local elections and you make change there. And it's time we made change in the city of Manchester. And I'm hoping people stand up and pay attention and go and vote. And I just talked to two wonderful people just yesterday who said to me, "We're not going to be around, so we're not going to be able to vote." And I said to them, "So why wouldn't you do an absentee ballot?" We've got a caller coming in. Let's see who we have, ladies and gentlemen. All right, go ahead, call. You're on air. Who are we speaking to?
Hey, Jim. Phil Sapienza. How are you?
I'm good, Phil. How are you doing?
All right. I just flipped from the Aldermanic meeting to hear you.
It must have been boring over there. What are they doing over there?
Well, actually, they took a break because they're in between public session and the start of the meeting.
Oh, I see. They're on their. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, so
I was so excited to hear you riling on absentee landlords or people that were renting to anybody and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I was talking.
Like, oh, great, because you and I are on the same page a lot of times.
Right, and we are on that too.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Whenever you want to, anytime. Yep.
And I'm going full circle with it. We've been around this.
Yeah. Let me just stop.
Many times.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one thing before you start that. Did you see the Education Matters show? Dave Scannell was on, and did you see that earlier on?
I did not. I put it on late.
Okay. So you should have a look at that. We talked about, and I was, so I just made a mention of the other candidate for that ward, Dave Langton, which is my ward, of course. So I didn't know if you'd seen that or not. But anyway, go ahead with your questions.
And I'm sure you were positive about both, because I know your shtick, so to speak.
No, it's not shtick. I actually, what I said was that, I'll tell you exactly what I said. And Mr. Scannell was sitting here across from me, and I said, when I heard he was running for school board, I said I was delighted because I thought he'd make a great candidate, and I think he'll make a great candidate. And I said, then the next thought I had, Dave Scannell, I said the next thought I had is, and whatever the word, heck, but he's running in Ward 2. And and Deb Langton's in Ward 2, and as I said to him, she wouldn't have been the first person I would have picked to remove from that board. But I want to just say, Phil, I don't really know what you meant by shtick, but that's not shtick. That's what I think.
Right. Well, a poor choice of words, and as soon as I said it, I knew it was.
That's all right.
What I was trying to say was your message would be a better delivery. Your message that they're both fine candidates and whatever.
Right.
But the reason I called tonight, can I ask you a couple real pointed questions?
Do. I don't know any other kind from you.
Do you think that the city as a whole, and especially the school district, would be better off if we had either a state income tax or sales tax or both?
Yes.
Okay. So you and I can agree on that, right?
Yep.
And
that's a straighter. By the way,
I did want to ask you.
Sorry, Phil.
Before we can get into all the baloney about politics.
Yeah.
I hope all your kinfolk back in Ireland are safe.
What a nice thought, Phil. You know what they are, and for people who don't know, there was a hurricane Ophelia hit Ireland yesterday, and there actually were 3 people died across the country, but that was a much lighter amount than would have been imagined. So compared to what happened in Puerto Rico, whatever, it was nothing like that. It kind of shut the country down for a couple of days. But anyway, my folks, I called them, and they were all good, and
good.
Yeah. So, but I got to tell you, right outside my house in Cork Harbour, the lighthouse, which you can see from my parents' house, The lighthouse recorded 115-mile-an-hour winds on yesterday. Yeah. So, anyway, go ahead.
Well, I did want you to know I was thinking about you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and your family.
Thank you, Phil.
And that's above all this other baloney that we're going to talk about. But
that's all. And that's the stuff that matters.
Right. So we both agree that a state income tax or sales tax would benefit not only the city as a whole, but especially the educational system. Right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So you and I, once again, we're on the same page.
Okay.
Well, guess what?
What?
The people without the blue and yellow signs.
Yeah.
They gave up on it.
They did.
They quit. And as soon as they quit, they need to stop pointing the fingers. It's done. The issue's over. They're no longer trying to make the educational system better. They're no longer trying to make the city better. They're no longer trying to move the progressive agenda of free college and health care for everybody and a working wage of $15 an hour. They're no longer doing that. Here's what they're doing, Jim, and you know it as well as I do. They're trying to be a little bit better than the millionaire businessman with the blue and yellow signs that was born and raised in Manchester and loves his city and comes from a belief of a business approach to government. They're no better. And I'm hoping, and that's why I call these shows every time you're on that I catch you, that you will join me in saying, once we can get everybody in the same room and together and say, you know what, the mental health issue in New Hampshire is a joke. DCYF is a joke. The criminal justice system is a joke. The educational system is a joke. We need to stop. We need to stop looking for mediocrity. And we need to really get into the weeds of it.
Right.
I appreciate your efforts to promote your candidate or to promote your ideals. But if we really get in a room and nobody was there, the cameras were off, the microphones were off, come on.
No, well, here's the thing. So I agree. So we agree with that. First of all, So when you asked me the question about taxes, I gave you an answer because again, that's what I don't have an axe to grind in this. Secondly, I would say this: I said it tonight, and I'll say it again. But I've said it twice in the last hour that if what's her name, if Joyce Craig is elected as mayor, I don't believe the things being said about her by the Gatzis campaign about how she's going to raise taxes and that she meant the stuff that was written in that letter and all that stuff. I think it's a load of garbage. I know that I'm going to be, and I used the words on this show or on the previous one, that I expect to be going head to head with Joyce Craig, to force her to do the right thing by our schools. And I use the words, I expect to be keeping her feet to the fire. So I've got a realistic view of what I've gotten. I would prefer if there was a candidate running who actually said, I've got a plan to replenish Manchester schools and to get us back to where we're the state average for teacher salaries, the state average for school size, the state etc. Then I'd vote for that person, left, right, and centre. That would be great. But we don't have that choice. So the choice I have is between Ted Gatzis, who I've just said has changed his mind in recent weeks. He's gone from saying that we're doing the best we can and we'll to back to where he was 8 years ago, which is everything's fine here. We don't need to make any changes. We're doing a great job. Anybody who doesn't say so is a bad person. That's where he's been for the last week or two.
Jim.
Yeah.
Once again, you made some good points. But you went on a little bit, in my opinion, too long.
Okay.
Which is why sometimes I try to cut you off.
I do.
So let me stop you with this.
Yep.
If we had a candidate that was willing to do this, A, B, C, D, E, and F, which you and I both agree on.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Whether it's healthcare, education, pollution, world affairs. All right, we all get that. Here's what people aren't saying. We had that candidate, not locally, but nationally. And his name was Bernie Sanders. And the same people that are backing Joyce Craig, and I'm not bashing her.
Right.
A very nice person, intelligent person from a good family.
Yep.
Believe me, I'm not bashing her. But those same people that are backing her
Right.
that had a chance to back this individual, that are speaking of the ideals that you're speaking of,
Right.
not only locally but statewide and nationally.
Right.
They chose not to back him, Bernie Sanders.
Right.
So my point to you is, can we really trust all of them to do the better for everybody? And the answer is, quite frankly, I'm not 15 anymore. I'm 55. No. They've shown us time and time again, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I know one thing. When Ted Gatsas tells me that it's red, it's red. He tells me it's green, it's green. He tells me he's going to help me, he helps me. He tells me he can't help me, he can't help me.
Can I?
And I'm not saying that Joyce wouldn't do the same, but here's what I am saying.
Yeah.
When we get into the rhetoric of it,
Yeah.
and all these political people, whether it's at the state, local, or national level, that tell us how awesome all the Democrats are, when push comes to shove, and they have it right in front of them, when the people in New Hampshire speak out 2-1 that we want Bernie Sanders, the superdelegates say, I'm sorry, even though we're a democracy, we're not going to listen to your voice.
Right. Hey, and
We're not really a democracy,
Right.
one stone for every person to put on the mountain to vote.
right.
We're a republic.
Yeah.
So guess what, Jim?
Yeah.
Your message, and not you, please
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
me,
No,
not
I know.
you, but your message of this greater good rings hollow to those, in my opinion, I'm one of them, that have a full picture of what's going on.
Right. So
Nobody's going to raise the tax cap and help out the students
so-
of Manchester. They come from all over the world. They're going to fend for themselves the best they can. Because you know what? We might not get elected, and then we might have to pay the doctor ourselves.
Right. So
We can't go and have an MRI or a cancer treatment or a knee replacement, or our children can't go and get services, and the city's going to foot the bill. So guess what, Jim?
Well,
Enough's enough. Let's talk turkey.
yeah, so talking turkey, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. You just said right now that when Ted Gatsas says to you it's green, when it's red, it's red, when it's blue, right? And I'm saying to you that he was on the radio yesterday morning reiterating a number of untruths that are clearly untrue, and you can
Give me
twist.
one.
I will. You can twist the logic and dance around it as much as you want. I don't mean you, but I mean he can.
Yeah.
But he's repeating the lie that Joyce Craig proposed and wants to have. For instance, one of the many, a renter's tax in the city of New Hampshire, in the city of Manchester. Now she has said that she doesn't. She said it 2 years ago that she didn't. She's explained both in the original letter and every time since that she doesn't. And yet he's standing telling you and me, along with all the other people in Manchester, that what is blue is actually red and what is red is green.
Okay, so to that point,
Yeah.
would you agree that Joyce Craig insisted that the teachers pay 0.5% more on their insurance above and beyond what other city employees were paying so they could cover a budget gap?
So the truthful answer to that is I don't know, but I think
Okay, let me interrupt.
Okay.
The truthful answer to that is I do know that she did.
Okay,
And I was with Scott McGilvery when he swallowed it to get a contract with
Right.
that.
So can I stop
and
you?
I'm not bashing her. Here's what I'm saying.
Okay, but I want to stop
Instead
you.
of going tit for tat,
Yeah.
the overall message is,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm getting after. The other stuff is the politics in the weeds, and you can nitpick and say this and that.
Right.
Let's keep Joyce out of it. Family friend, blah blah blah. Let's go to Chris Herbert, another family friend, and I'm not bashing him.
Right.
Voted to RIF teachers.
Right.
And then when he ran for mayor, he actually showed up at our union meeting and said, "You are my campaign. I need you to help me run it."
Right.
My point being, they do what's best for them at the time.
Yep.
And Ted's more straightforward.
See,
I'm not saying that he said this and he said that and he meant this and he meant that. My point is, in my opinion, my dealings with him, when he tells me something, I can trust it to be true. And that's not to say that I can't trust anybody else, but although I don't always agree with him, we can have an argument or a discussion or a dialogue, and he's going to go with what he thinks is right.
But let me
Now
just
we
say.
get into 2 weeks before an election, all of a sudden, we get this political brouhaha and all this baloney, quite frankly, about who he is or who he isn't. He is who he is. That's his,
Yeah,
plain as the night sky. He is who he is, and Joyce is who she is.
Yeah, and who's not saying that? I'm saying that. I'm good with that. He is who he is. I've said numerous times, it's no mystery to me why Ted Gatz has got elected 4 times as mayor. I've said it again today. It's not a surprise. He's clearly a qualified politician. Right, he's not someone that's going to, embarrass you. And I was saying this on the radio today. It's not like Ted Gatz is ever going to stand up and sort of embarrass the city because he's incompetent or something, right? So obviously he's a politician. This is what he obviously loves the city. I've always given him that. When it comes to the opiate crisis, he clearly is passionate about it. I might not agree with everything that he's done or how he's done it or what he's done, and I could point out places he might have done more. But I don't question the fact.
Would you admit this? He was out in front on it way before anyone else, and that Manchester is a national model for how we should deal with it?
I don't know that.
Well, you don't know that. Are
you
serious?
No, I'm dead serious.
Well, let me help you out with it, Jim, if you don't know it.
No, please help me out.
He was talking about it during the last election before anybody else was, and now the safe station is in vogue.
Yeah.
The whole country's kind of looking to us for leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he invented it or he's the author of it,
right?
But he was the leader who helped facilitate it. So he's got to get some credit for it.
I'll tell you what. He and every other political leader in the state of New Hampshire, and our national political leadership, all of them ought to be disgraced for what they've done in the face of the opiate crisis. We have a national government that we've got 200,000 people were dead already last year, and nothing was done. Nothing's been done at that level. And the state of New Hampshire puts together a bunch of politicians of both parties under Jean Shaheen, and they put together a think tank that's told at the very outset that there's no money to spend, so we're not spending any money. Because I'll tell you what, Phil, if I was the one in charge, what I'd be saying is we need to put services in place in order to... This is a generational crisis, and we need to do something other than simply say, I think safe stations is great. All that is a nice idea by Chris Hickey, God bless him, but all they've done is said, why don't you go by the fire station and then they'll drive you to wherever you need to go. I mean, we're not spending a dime, right? There's not a... So when he
somewhat regressed or progressed into a national issue.
Okay, let me go back on this though. Let's go back to
finding out that Congress might be.
All right, let's go back to
part and parcel to some real corruption.
Yeah, but let's go back.
In terms of pharmaceutical companies.
Yes, absolutely. We saw that this week. But
we're going to put that on Ted's plate.
No, we're not. Absolutely not. But what we are going to do is this: when Hillsborough County could have set up a drugs court for Manchester, and we couldn't, Ted Gatz's couldn't go over to Hillsborough County and get the Republican majority in the Hillsborough County to vote to spend a couple of $100,000 out of the $1.5 million that they had in the bank. That's how far we got. That's how much effort was actually made in the end.
Okay, stop, Jim. Stop. Yeah. That's a great political point, but let me counter it.
Okay.
Look at the fact that we had Governor Lynch for 5 terms, Governor Hassan, Shaheen, Porter, and the rest of the Democrats in charge statewide. They couldn't get their hands around it either. So why don't we do this? Why don't we blame Teddy for it?
I'm not blaming Teddy for it.
Maybe our candidate will get 64 more votes.
No, I'm not blaming
Teddy. That's my point. Jim, time out.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yep.
Enough with that. Enough.
You brought it up, not me.
Well, let's do this.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Yep.
Let's implement a state sales and income tax. Let's get the kids educated. Let's open up a mental health institution. Let's get the prisons fully funded. And then we can draw a line between Democrats and Republicans.
We might be waiting a long time, as you know.
Until we do that, all we're doing is throwing mud. It's the biggest joke since I've been 12 years old. I wish Bob Raich was the governor. Because in 1972, I believe it was, he said, we need a state income tax to take care of everybody.
Right.
Now, he got killed by Crawley, and my father told me he would, but my father also said, that's the kind of guy you want to follow. Well, guess what? When he lost, the rest of them started caving in one by one.
I
Chris Spiro. He was all for Ward 3, Ward 5, inner city, take care of the immigrants. Before immigration was an issue, take care of the poor, take care of the unemployed. How did he do in the election? He got slaughtered.
Right.
So finally, the Democratic Party says, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to cave in. And that's what makes me sick, is when good people like you, hardworking immigrants, intelligent people, pick up their banner and say, we're going to go after everybody that's blue or red or whatever it is.
But that's not the case.
Guess what?
Yeah.
They're all in the same boat.
Okay, well, I have to live in the real world. I live in the real world. For me, is there are choices and people have to make choices, and I have no doubt in my mind, and I know we disagree on this, but I have no doubt in my mind that the Manchester school system will be better off under Joyce Craig than it has been under Ted Gatsas.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah.
Do this for me then.
Yeah.
The Manchester School District will be better off.
That's what I think.
Ask her or ask any one of your other buddies on the board if they're willing to give up their golden nugget health insurance to take care of immigrant and refugee children and non-immigrant and refugee children that need foreign languages, smaller math classes, and more opportunities to find success. And I'll tell you what your answer is.
What?
It's no. And right-wingers, and I say it respectfully, I'm not dishing them, like Rich Gerard, says maybe we should give that up.
Right, right.
So when people say, how can you support him? I don't support him, generally speaking.
No, I don't
but
support him.
I will tell you this. He makes a lot more sense than somebody that's sending 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people to the doctor at the expense of the taxpayer when somebody can't take French or Spanish or sit in an algebra class because they have to sit in a pre-algebra class or a Math 1 class because there's 30 kids in the class. And I see it every day.
Here, here.
And those are the progressive liberals that are going to straighten out the school district?
No, but you're making...
It's a bunch of hogwash.
No, you're making the wrong...
It's about time the people start realizing that.
You're drawing the long line. If you're
and
actually...
I'm getting tired of dealing with it.
But if you're actually saying that it's a bunch of whatever you call something liberals are the people...
Hogwash.
You're claiming right here that it's a bunch of liberals on the Board of School Committee who are the ones who are both taking and voting for health care, right? And you know that that's not the case, right? So there are people on both sides of the divide. But they're
not stupid.
No, they're both.
Ward 1.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
What's the party affiliation?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to really
Democrat.
go through.
That's one.
Yeah.
Ward 2. What's the party affiliation?
I don't know. I don't know.
Used to be a Democrat for 40 years till they stabbed her in the back. Now an independent. Voting against it. Ward 3.
Are we really going to go down through the wards here? I mean, are you saying?
Well, Jim, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're acting like you know what's going on. You don't know what party they're in?
I know that there was a report that someone got the numbers out of this, not the numbers, but got the list of people out of the response from the school board recently, and there were 5 people on the board of school.
Let me help you, Jim. Ward 3, Democratic Party affiliation.
Yeah.
Ward 4, Democratic Party affiliation.
Yep.
Ward 5, Republican.
Yep.
Ward 6, Democrat.
Yep.
Ward 7, Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Ward 8, Democrat. Ward 9, Democrat. Ward 10, Republican.
Right.
Ward 11, Democrat.
Yep.
Ward 12, Democrat. At large, Tessier, Democrat. At large, Gerard, Republican.
Right.
So how can we have this ridiculous expense for the haves, for the elite?
Can you
for the people that are doing well? Who's taking care of the poor?
I agree with you, but listen, if you're my only...
No, you said you didn't know about 2 minutes ago.
Didn't know what?
Now you know.
No, you want me to...
It's ridiculous, Jim. It's a hollow argument.
All right, I don't agree. I'm saying that with regard to the healthcare issue, 5 people were accepting it. As I recall, there were both Republicans and Democrats accepting the healthcare. From what I saw, I don't remember the names from each ward, who was getting what, etc. Because there were some people taking dental and some people taking health. But I didn't see a division as to all Republicans not taking it, all Democrats taking it. That's not what I saw.
God bless you. God bless you. I wish you were my operative.
Why?
That's not the point. It's the premise. Should elected officials be getting health care at the expense of children?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
Right. Absolutely.
By and large, the bleeding heart liberals, which I am one, that are elected, are voting to take it.
Right.
So when push comes to shove, they're really not that bleeding hard.
Right. So
That's it.
so
Plain
then
and
so
simple. Now, are there Republicans that voted to keep it?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Why wouldn't they? It's a
Right.
gold coin in their pocket.
right.
But my point is this: there's not much difference between the two.
There,
So
you're
we're talking
right.
about the blue
You're
sign
you're
with
you're
the gold,
you're
or
absolute.
the green sign with the white. Here's what I'm saying to you, Jim. We're not rowing the boat for everybody.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. It's
Well, then say it on your show. Don't put it all on Teddy's back, even though his back's twice the size of yours and mine.
I don't know if you know. I don't know if he'd like that, but no. Look, I try to call it like it is. I've often said, you pointed out to me one time about the fact it's not just Ted Gatz's, it's boards and the whole board. And I've said numerous times ever since then. I constantly talk about the 29 people who are responsible for the politics of our city, and it's the responsibility of all of them. So I'm going to let you go because I'm down to time. I have you on for 25 minutes, so I never want to cut you off. It's always interesting to hear from you, Phil. Go back to the other side. They're probably talking about something over there by now. It might even be interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That was Phil Sapienza, a man of a friend of mine, a good friend of Ted Gatz's. I respect his passion, and I respect his loyalty to his friend. And it adds to the whole thing of there's no surprises to me as to why Ted Gatzis has been mayor for 4 terms and etc. So because of the points that someone like Phil makes, I disagree with Phil because I just don't believe that this dividing into two camps thing works. We got a caller here. Hi, caller. Go ahead. You're on the show.
Yes, that gentleman that called up before, just now, he made a lot of sense. But anyway, I'd like to tell you that about the school board.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, you had that small little clique that didn't like Superintendent Vargas. You know what I mean, that little clique. No matter what happens, they just don't like the superintendent.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Mayor Gaskus, he wants so much to help to make Manchester a better place. But guess what? He's got those turkeys on the board that all override him all the time. What do you expect? They're all Democrats, and no matter what he does, they're always against him. So he hasn't got a chance to pass a good bill with those turkeys that you have. Anyway, I got to say, I'm so glad that we have an election coming.
Yeah.
And we have to get rid of some of those people on the school board committee.
Right.
And we get rid of some of these aldermen.
All right.
And it will have a greater chance to be good again.
All right.
Manchester. But right now, his hands are tied with those turkeys that we have on the automatic board. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So I don't happen to agree at all, sir. And I don't know what we're talking about. He can't get a bill passed because first of all, you can't get people to vote. Anybody who I wish there was a Democratic Party in the city of Manchester that actually voted like a bloc or something. I mean, if anybody's seen that, let me know because I've never seen it. Secondly, Mayor Gatzis gets pretty much everything that he wants. I don't know of anything that he hasn't gotten. And the caller who just called, if they want to call back the next time or something, but, I'd like to know what it is, what is these bills, or what I don't want to mock that, but what these proposals he has that he can't get passed. I don't know what they are, because I've heard none. I've certainly never heard anyone that was going to cost a dime of any kind that was ever going to get passed. And he's not going to rock any boats either. So, we've got a choice. I don't know why you suddenly think that things would change if he were still mayor, because there's no evidence of him offering any bills. You can inform me if you wish. I'd like to hear what they are of something he proposed that got shot down, because I don't know what that is. I haven't heard him deal with the issue of Yarger Decker and say what he's going to do about that. I haven't heard him deal with the issue of what's going to happen. He sat around and watched West High School sitting there half empty for the last 8 to 10 years, and he said nothing about it. He's the chairman of the school board. It is false, sir, with all due respect, to come on here and say that somehow Mayor Gatzis had a plan for that he would have done something about it, but the board voted him down. Because if he did, I knew nothing about it. Unless you want to talk about the redistricting thing, and we can get buried in that ball of wax for the next 20 years. So we're down to the last 2 minutes. So I'm going to we had a call, but it's gone. We're down to the last couple of minutes. So I do thank the gentleman for calling in. I'm grateful for Phil for calling in. I did leave him on for a long time because he's a friend of mine, and because he's offering a counterbalance to some of the things that I say, and maybe it should be heard. But he and I agree on a lot of things, but we don't agree on that topic. This idea, by the way, that some members of the school board are against what Dr. Vargas has to do. I don't know of any specific instance of anything that Dr. Vargas has proposed that's been shot down by some minority or some majority on the school board. I don't know anything. I know there are talking points out there about it, but I know nothing about that. And I pay attention to these things, and that's a story that's out there, a narrative that's around, but I don't know of any proposal that Dr. Vargas has made that has been shot down. Now, maybe it's happening at these secret meetings that people know about that we're not supposed to know about. Maybe that's the case, and maybe that's why I don't know. But I like Dr. Vargas. I think Dr. Vargas has had a great start. I see no impediments to his moving forward. He's speaking truth to power. I like that. I may not like everything that he proposes in the end, but I have no question that he's a man of action and a man of some integrity. And so I like him, and I don't know of people who are standing in his way. And the candidates that I talk to, and I've talked to almost all of them, are of one mind, saying that they're looking forward to working with him and seeing what the next page that's turned brings. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we've gotten to the end of a good hour here on the Queen City Chronicles. I'm grateful to John for being your guest host tonight. I encourage you. We've got 3 weeks left. Find out about the stance of your candidates and go out and vote. And let's have a new day in Manchester. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.